Story 1. First off, I really like small women. Part of it is my mom and a number of the women in my family are short. And if I can find a woman who can even slightly compare to my mom, I will be the luckiest man on earth. They live up to the Lilo and Stitch line. Tiny, but fierce. Time, spring break. Place, Fort Lauderdale. About 10-15 years ago, I was in college in Fort Lauderdale, which made spring break fun and easy. I decided to go down to the beach to do some photography homework. I ended up finishing near a bar where a friend of mine worked. He told me about a nice scotch they had at the bar, a 20-year-old, single malt, estate bottling, very rare for bar service. So I got a glass and went across the street to sit on the wave wall, drink my scotch, read my book, and admire all the ladies on the beach sue me. I was 24 at the time, thus an idiot. After about an hour or so, I was finishing my scotch, you don't rush good scotch, and thinking of heading out when a very lovely young lady approached and sat down beside me. Now, to let you all understand, let me describe her. She was about 5'3", with long red hair, petite, well-proportioned, and a very definite womanly figure. She was wearing a one-piece swimsuit. I won't get too descriptive, but trust me, it was not an outfit for a child. We got talking, and I decided to hang out a bit longer to see how things would go. After a bit, I offered to grab us some drinks, but when she asked for a daiquiri, I figured to cover myself and asked if she had some ID since she was young looking enough to get me in trouble if I didn't check. She pulled out an ID saying she had turned 21 last month legal, yay, and handed it over to show the bartender. I came back about 15 minutes later with our drinks. The bartender had no problem with the ID, and we continued chatting. But as things kept going and she continued to drink her drink, something started to come off as wrong. I started to think she was underage, but as the ID passed muster with the bartender, I wasn't too worried since the fake ID was on her if something came up. Enter entitled parents. As we were finishing our drinks and I was working up the nerve to invite her to my room, up walks a couple couldn't be more stereotypical tourists if they had actually used that white stuff on their noses and approached the girl. Entitled mother, hey honey, where did you go? We've been looking everywhere for you. Entitled father, seeing the ubiquitous red Solo cup, what's that you're drinking? Entitled daughter, I don't know, some sort of strawberry slushy type drink he pointing at me got me. Entitled father, grabs the cup and sniffs it. This is alcoholic. You gave my daughter an alcoholic drink. How dare you? I'm calling the cops. Entitled mother, grabs the daughter by the arm and yanks her behind herself. You pervert. You probably drugged it, didn't you? You'll go directly to jail for giving a 15-year-old a drugged drink. Obviously, on hearing that, the tension went to 11. I knew I did nothing wrong, but still. 15. I tried to explain about the fake ID and was about to get on them about her swimsuit when I was cut off with. Entitled mother, our daughter would never do something like that. Turns to the daughter, would you, honey? The daughter shakes her head no. At this point, I figured discretion is the better part of valor and sat back down, hoping the bartender would remember the ID I showed him. I proceeded to sit and ignore the haranguing they were spewing and waited for the cops. I also noticed what looked like her ID dropped in the sand behind the wall. This is important later. A few minutes later, the cops arrived, including my female cop friend who was a Dungeons and Dragons friend with me and the bartender and her partner. Entitled parents dragging entitled daughter immediately rushed up to my friend, spinning their tale of how I tried to drug entitled daughter with an alcoholic drink. When they mentioned my fake ID excuse, entitled daughter actually opened her purse and offered to let them search it. After this, the male cop pulled them aside to get their statement, and my female cop friend approached me with a very conflicted look. We had met a couple of times before and got along well, but this was a pretty serious situation. Before she even said something, I asked her to lean over the wall and pointed to the fake ID. After she retrieved the ID and examined it, I explained my side of the story. After my explanation, she took a closer look at entitled daughter's swimsuit, and her eyes nearly popped out of her head at how skimpy it was if it had more than 5 square inches of fabric, including the strings. I would be shocked. The male cop pulled the female cop aside, where they had a brief discussion before they arrested all 3 of them, entitled daughter for a fake ID, and entitled mother and entitled father for child endangerment. We all heard later at the next Dungeons and Dragons game that although they never went to jail, they were held for the entire 48 hours, had their vacation ruined, and ended up with some major fines and a call to their state's Department of Children and Family Services. Ever since then, my sense of caution goes off, and I'm out of there. Hope you all enjoyed my entitled parents experience. Story 2. Fair warning, this one gets a touch violent. I am in no way advocating violence or attempting to glorify violence. Just trying to tell my story of an entitled mother who played a foolish game and won several foolish prizes. So, backstory. I'm in the Navy, and a few years ago, I was stationed on a ship. As part of my duties, I would occasionally have to stand as an armed guard at the entrance to the piers where the ships were docked. One Saturday evening, I'm standing guard, and for the first few hours, everything is going fine. A few pizza delivery drivers, a few totally not drunk sailors, yes, it's a stereotype, but it's true, a typical evening. And then my quiet watch came to a screeching halt. The entitled mother came up to the gate, and I asked to see her ID. The following conversation ensues. For the sake of security, certain details are being left out. The entitled mother gives a very loud huff and pulls out her driver's license. Me. All right, ma'am, is he coming to get you? Entitled mother. No. Why? Me. I can't let you onto the pier without proper identification or an escort. Entitled mother. But I showed you my license. Me. Ma'am, in order to come onto the pier by yourself, you'll need a military ID or a temporary pass. Since you don't have any of those, you'll need your son to come down from the ship and escort you on board. While I was talking with the entitled mother, another person came up with her military ID in hand, and I attempted to let her through. Practically yelling, the entitled mother says, "I was here first, you brat." She didn't use brat. She said another strong word. Me. Ma'am, that is uncalled for. Entitled mother. What are you going to do about it, you jerk? Again, she didn't use jerk. She used a World War II German soldier analogy, starts with an N. I used every ounce of mental strength to not yell at her. Ma'am, step away from the gate. Entitled mother. No, I'm going to see my son. And proceeds to attempt to push past me. I pulled my can of OC spray off my belt, moved in front of her, and now forcefully commanding, "Ma'am, this is your last warning. Step away from the gate, or you will be sprayed." For those of you who don't know what OC spray is, it's Olorsan capsicum. Think of it as mace and pepper spray's evil cousin, and it hurts a lot. Like 100,000 hypodermic needles full of burning molten salt being drilled into your eyes, and it doesn't stop for hours. The entitled mother makes one more step towards the gate. She says, "Forget you, slur." I spray the entitled mother right in the face, toss the can away, and tackle her to the ground and handcuff her. All the while, she's yelling every obscenity in the book she would have made a Civil War-era sailor blush, threatening to sue. "I know your boss. I'll get the president to get you fired," which personally, I would have loved to have seen. Yada, yada. Typical Karen threats with no effect. While all this was going on, the other guard who was with me had called for the watch supervisor, and the girl who I was going to let through had called the base police. A few minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up, one of which was the county sheriff, an ambulance, and the watch supervisor. The medics started treating her OC contamination, and when they cut the cuffs off, they were flex cuffs. She punched 2 of them and wiped OC onto the 3rd. The base cop ran over and cuffed her with real cuffs now. I recounted the encounter to the sheriff and the watch supervisor. The other guard and the girl did the same, and the entitled mother was arrested for trespassing on government property twice, failure to follow the instructions of military police, resisting arrest, and assaulting an emergency medical technician thrice. The best part was her son's ship pulled into port 2 days later. For anybody who may think I used excessive force with the OC spray, I had 5 reasonable options to stop the entitled mother. Verbal commands usually works with about 80% of sane and even slightly drunk or high people. Not going to work on determined or foolish people. Mock takedowns, hands-on physical maneuvers and joint holds. Unencumbered would have been the best option, but in 25+ pounds of gear and having a sidearm on makes these by themselves dangerous. Combined with OC or baton strikes makes these much more effective in gear. OC spray causes a near-instant reaction in 99% of people, with very rare severe reactions occurring in less than 1 in 50,000. Steel retractable baton. While it would have been effective, the baton was not necessary. Plus, well-placed strikes can easily break bones and, in a worst-case scenario for a body strike, cause a heart attack. 9 sidearm. At no point during the encounter was the definition for deadly force authorization met. Nor did I feel that my life, anybody else's life, or the dock ship's safety was threatened by the entitled mother's actions. Even if the entitled mother had pulled a knife, OC would be more than sufficient to disarm just about anybody. The full effects wear off in about 5 hours by themselves and about an hour or two with medical care. Story 3. We had a rude customer today. A 50-something Barbara and her teenage daughter strutted in around 4:45 p.m. We close at 5 p.m. They wanted passport photos done. We normally take 2 photos and then pick the best one. Create the passport photo, put it through a passport checker with an approval number, and send it off to the customer. A 10-minute process for digital, also 10 minutes for printing. The daughter asks to see her photo, so my colleague shows her, and the girl cringes. The colleague takes another 2 photos. Same thing, the teenager doesn't like them. That's what you look like. Not much will change if we keep taking photos. The colleague tells the pair, I won't take any more photos, we have enough here. 7 images in total. Mummy then says, we are paying customers. If my daughter doesn't like the photo, you will take a new one. What? Anyway, she spouted on about how she needs her passport photos sent through tonight, all the while berating and belittling my colleague because, the customer is always right energy. I walked over and offered her a refund and that we are okay without her belittling behavior, especially now that it is 4:52 p.m. She refused a refund and just wanted the photos and reiterated she needed them this evening. My colleague, with red eyes, tells me it is okay and that she will do them. She was doing prints at the time and digital images afterward. At 4:56 p.m., the colleague hands over the printed version and takes down Mummy's details for the digital version to be sent through. The teenage daughter has been quiet. Anyway, they left our shop. It is now 4:58 p.m., and we have decided to close our doors. Darn. Aren't you going to be surprised when we don't send through the digital version tonight, all because you were rude? We stop work after 5, so thank you. Barbara, you entitled jerk. Thank you for ruining the last 15 minutes of our day. Story 4. I work nights at a petrol station, and my sister works at the supermarket on my commute. I usually pop in after my shift to get some essentials and have a chat with my sister. She collects the online deliveries. I find my sister, and she immediately tells me that one of her coworkers needs my advice. I'm the family carpenter, and they go to me for repairs and light construction. She finds her coworker and asks for advice on fitting custom blinds. An easy job that every contractor she called said no to, not worth the time. She doesn't have a clue what to do, so I offer my services for a small fee. While I'm doing all this, I don't see the woman behind me trying to get my attention. Once my coworker had gone, she tapped my shoulder. Not a typical Karen, tall, blonde, vintage glasses, pencil skirt, and a wool sweater. She looked like an attractive librarian. She asked, do you know when the party section will be open? Sorry, my dear, I have no idea, I told her straight. Oh, I thought you worked here. You were talking to the staff for a long while, she replied. I don't, but my sister does, I pointed to my sister. She then looks worried. Oh no, it's like Reddit. I'm not a Karen. I know what she means. I read the subreddit too. Don't panic, I'm not Kevin. She then starts to giggle, and I see her relief. My sister is confused by what we mean, but answers her question. I thought it was going to be an I don't work here lady moment. I read them all the time, she giggled some more. I thought the same thing. I wished her a good day, and we parted ways. Made me giggle too. I did fit my coworker's blinds. She gave me £30.